a couple weeks late, but last night I was finally able to check out Venom 3, so here are my thoughts on it. Hi, my name is Nathan, and I talk about a lot of movies on this channel. If you're new here, down below in the comment section, share what you thought of Venom 3, The Last Dance, over on my channel. I have more content like this. Check those out once this video is over, and if you enjoy this video, click the like button and be sure to subscribe. It really does help a lot. And with all that said, let's just get straight into the review, talking about the good. And since I watched this movie a couple weeks late, I didn't watch it when it first came out because I had to go to a church retreat because I'm in a confirmation session. So I had to go to a retreat to a camp. So I couldn't see Venom 3 the week that it came out. I was actually planning on seeing it as soon as I came back, but the timing just didn't work out because the day I came back was my mother's birthday. Add to that, the week after that, there was just some stuff I was dealing with, so I couldn't see that either. And I ended up seeing Heretic on Friday, so this movie just kept getting delayed. Finally saw it, and I am happy to report I feel like this is the best of the three Venom movies. Now, to give a little bit of context of my expectations going into this movie, I was kind of excited going into this film as it was the third and final Venom film that we're getting. And the trailers, they looked fun. To be clear, going into this movie, I'd only seen the first trailer. I had not seen the second trailer until after I saw the movie. I didn't even really know who the villain was of this movie before watching it. And so I went in knowing pretty little information other than what they gave out in that first trailer. And the reviews that I heard surrounding this film, some people were calling it the worst of the trilogy, others were calling it the best of the trilogy, but most of that seemed to be negative. If it was the best of the trilogy, it was the least crappy of the trilogy, and if it was the worst of the trilogy, well, it was just a crappy movie. So, went in with lower expectations to try to balance myself, and I was pleasantly surprised that, I think that this movie it's getting a lot of trash and hate, and I don't think it's that at all. And I would say it's the best of the three. And to give a little context, the original Venom I'm more mixed negative on. Venom Let There Be Carnage I'm more mixed positive on. So I would go positive on this movie. I enjoyed this movie. And I can say that it's good. I liked it. And, of course, to get into the actual specifics of the review, some of that just boils down to the fact that Eddie and Venom still just have just as much fun, dialogue, and chemistry as ever. Those two are just so fun on screen, even in the worst of the trilogy, which is the first one to me, which I actually think is the worst of the three Venom movies. The best thing about that movie is the Eddie-Venom relationship, and that continues on, and still the best thing about this movie. But I would also say, just on a standpoint comparing it to the first two films, I think it has the strongest elements of what I enjoy about the Venom movies. And I think it has the strongest action sequences of the three, because the first two are only kind of set in San Francisco, so some of the action sequences are in labs, or some of them are on rocket ships in the first Venom. Another one's in the final battle is in a church in the second film. Carnage goes crazy in a prison in the second film. But here, it has more opportunities for more interesting settings for action sequences. So then you get one at a canyon in the middle of it, like in a river where they're swimming around. There's another one at, I was going to say Las Vegas. Not really an action sequence, but a fun little something that happens in it. There's one near the beginning of the film. And they're all in much more interesting settings than the first two Venoms, because it is very much more like sort of this globe-trotting film where they're trying to get from one destination to another destination, and they get swept off in his whole ordeal following Area 51. And it's the largest in scale of the Venom movies. Like I said, the first two films are only in San Francisco. This one expands it further to a globe-trotting adventure, so I had fun with it. I thought it worked well enough. And I thought also, because this one was the final film in the trilogy, I think they found a way to still have that Eddie Venom bromance and have their banter, their chemistry. But because it was the final film, it also had some forms of emotion that came with it by the time you get to the end. But I feel like that only works if you enjoy the Venom character really much. As for me, I saw the original Venom and Venom Let There Be Carnage in the theater when they came out. I saw the original Venom when I was like 8, whenever that movie would have came out. And it came full circle here. And by the time you get to the end in the final few minutes of the film, it can get pretty emotional. Like, it's which is totally not what I was expecting. From a Venom movie, that is not what I was expecting at all. But I thought it had a lot more heart, a lot more emotion, even some sort of better setup and payoff with the character work, where there are some lines from the first Venom and some conversations they have in the other previous films that pay off here. There are other ones at the beginning of this film. And it has just an emotional core that I don't think the first two movies have at all. While the first two movies are fun, they don't have like a heart. And it comes full circle because Eddie and Venom sort of realize how much they mean to each other in this movie. It's kind of a movie about friendship at the same time. So I thought this was the best of the Venom trilogy. It's kind of emotional. I thought it was a very sweet way to end this franchise and a nice send-off to the Venom character. Not a perfect movie by any means, so let's move on to the bad. And there are quite a few criticisms here. While I would say of the Sony Spider-Man universe films, this one is my favorite of the Sony Spider-Man universe films. I would not say that it's particularly a great movie by any means. And so, to start off here, I think, of course, same problem with the other Venom movies, but a little bit more prominent here, the writing is quite lazy and sloppy. Where, if I don't want to give out too much, but there are some things that happen, it's very exposition heavy, where they just kind of explain situations, what's going on with the characters, what's going on with the plot, what the rules are. They just kind of say that as forms of exposition. It works well enough, but I also feel like there could have been a better way to kind of explore the grander idea of what was going on here, rather than just telling you what was going on here. And I get that these movies are supposed to be short. This movie's only 96 minutes. I think they could have made it a little bit longer to flesh out some things in the grander scale of what was really going on in the film. There's also some things where the final battle has a really stupid inciting incident that I didn't think I think they could have come up with a better inciting incident. I mean, it works well enough. It fits the movie that you're watching if you know that you're watching a Venom movie, but it is lazy writing. It's sloppy. Other thing to talk about here is that there's not, while it has good setup and payoff with the character work, there's not very good setup or payoff to the actual story work. And most of my criticisms here are going to come from the actual story of the film. And to say the least, I would say there are some things set up very beginning of the movie, very early on in the film, that end up not really going anywhere. There's some scenes in the middle of it and some characters added into it that I get their purpose, but I didn't feel like they felt like a good enough purpose for them to also be included in the third act. And there was this whole thing in the third act where I actually really enjoyed the final battle, but it's kind of like it came out of, some of it came out of nowhere. I don't want to spoil what happens in the finale. And so just the setup and payoff to the story also could have worked a little bit better. Also, like I said before I watched this movie, I didn't know who the villain was. And the villain is this guy called Null. I had never heard of this character. I know nothing about this character. I've never read a comic book with Null in it. And having left the movie, I still don't really know much about Null, because I don't want to spoil it, but he barely appears in this movie. The entire movie is just Eddie and Venom sort of fighting his minions, the things he sends out to fight Eddie and Venom. It's not them fighting him. And so I thought the villain, super forgettable, super underdeveloped, barely appears in this movie. But still, overall, I had a good time with this movie. I know a lot of you probably didn't like this film, but I had a good time with it. I went in with pretty low expectations, and it was better than I was expecting. And I would say the best film that Sony's Spider-Man universe has generated. Not great by any means, still a flawed film, but I'd say it is the best of the Sony Spider-Man universe films. So overall, I'll just give this one a safe B. But there we have it. Those are my thoughts on Venom: The Last Dance. Down below in the comment section, share what you thought of it over my channel. There's more content like this. Check those out right now. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end, and I will see you in the next one.